Hello students, I hope you will be doing well. So today we are just going to start the lecture that is related to the preparation of alcohols. Okay, that how does the alcohols are prepared? Preparation of alcohols. So there are two methods of preparation of alcohols. Especially we will be studying the preparation of ethanol. Okay, that is having the formula molecular formula of C2H5OH. So there are two methods for the preparation of alcohol. The first method is by fermentation. And the second method is by reacting ethene with the steam. In both of the methods, the ethanol is produced. So each method has its own advantage and disadvantage. Now we will be studying both of them with the detail. So we will be starting by the fermentation method. So by fermentation, what actually happens? With the help of the glucose, that is C6H12O6, it is a glucose in the presence of yeast, yeast enzymes at around temperature 25 to 35 degrees Celsius. So that is actually, this temperature is actually the room temperature. So what happens? This glucose, this glucose in the presence of the yeast enzyme at the room temperature will convert into the ethanol, that is actually the C2H5OH, and the second product is the carbon dioxide, right? So one molecule of the glucose will produce the two molecules of the ethanol and two molecules of carbon dioxide. So the ethanol that is produced in this process is around 15% pure. Okay, actually what happens? The enzymes, the yeast enzyme that works for this whole process are the zymase enzyme. Actually, this is a enzymatic activity. So that zymase enzyme will able to convert the glucose into the ethanol and the carbon dioxide. And that ethanol is 15% pure. So what actually happens? There's a bottle, right? And inside the bottle, the water is pure. We pour the water into it, that is around 3 liters. The glucose is also put into it, that is around 600 grams. Along with this, the yeast, that is around 9 grams, is put into the bottle. Now, what happens actually? Actually, the yeast is the single cell fungus. It is a single celled fungus. And afterwards, this bottle is tightly packed with a cap and after several weeks, the alcohol, that is ethanol, will be produced. The ethanol will be produced that is 15% pure. So that is what, if you want to concentrate this ethanol further around 96%, so you have to make it through the fractional distillation process. By the fractional distillation process, you will obtain 96% of the ethanol, right? Because this process occurs at the room temperature, so there is no extra heat is provided. The temperature that is it is feasible for this process is 25 to 35. If you provide more temperature to this process, so of course the enzymatic activity will stop and it will not be able to produce the ethanol. So for this process, why only 15% ethanol is produced? What is the reason behind? Because the enzymes, that is the zymase enzyme, will be able to produce only 15%, not more than this. It cannot be able to produce more alcohol because as it as if it is producing more percentage of alcohol, so its enzyme will stop working. So that's why it can only produce 15% alcohol. So that is what the whole process of the fermentation. Okay, what are the advantages and disadvantage of this process? The advantage of this process is that it occurs at the room temperature. So the first advantage of this process, it occurs at room temperature, right? And the second thing is that it cannot require any further heat or energy. Means this process is cheap. It is of low cost. So no extra energy, no extra heat, no extra pressure is required for this process. So this process is cheap, occurs at low cost, right? So what are the disadvantages? So the disadvantage of this process is that only 15% of alcohol is produced. Only 15% of alcohol is produced. The second disadvantage is that this process took lot of time, around several weeks, to produce the alcohol. Like for suppose if you need urgent, on the urgent basis, if you need the alcohol, so this process is not for that need because it took several weeks to produce alcohol. So this is a disadvantage. So low temperature and pressure. So this is what I can add. further. So that is all about the advantages and disadvantage of this whole process of the fermentation. Now I'm just coming towards by ethene reaction with the steam. Now, what happens? The ethene having the double bond. So what happens in the presence of water that is present in a steam? Because the water can be exist in the three states of matter, it can be exist in the solid state that is the ice. It can naturally be available by nature if it is available in liquid state, and if it is evaporated with the boiling, so it will convert into the vapor state that is the steam. So the here the water, it is present in a steam form, it will react with the ethene in the presence of. So this is a reversible reaction actually. So in the presence of around 300 degrees Celsius and the pressure that is around 70 to 80, 60 to 70 atm, and the catalyst that is used here is a phosphoric acid, H3PO4. So that is what it is, an acid catalyst. H3PO4 used here as an acid catalyst. So it will be producing ethanol. Okay. Now the thing is that how does it produces the ethanol? Now you can see here, this water can be break down into OH and H, and this OH and H will, both of them will be attached to this ethene. Okay. So how does, this is a hydrogen, this is a hydrogen, this is a hydrogen, and this is a hydrogen. Similar is that same hydrogens are present with the ethanol. So what is the addition? The addition is that of this hydrogen and OH which comes from the water that is present in a steam form. And it will break the double bond, means the ethene is actually the unsaturated hydrocarbon. The unsaturated hydrocarbon converts into the saturated one. How does? Because this OH and H has been added into it, and this is actually the addition reaction as well. So this addition reaction makes unsaturated ethene into saturated hydrocarbon, that is actually the ethanol. Right? So these are the conditions, that is 300 degrees Celsius, 60 to 70 atm, and the phosphoric acid used as a catalyst. So as now if I talk about the fermentation process, so fermentation process occurs at the room temperature, but this process occurs at around higher temperature, that is around 300 degrees Celsius, 60 to 70 atm, atmospheric pressure, and the phosphoric acid. Right? So what are the advantages now? So the advantages of this whole process is, so what is the advantage? The advantage is that it occurs rapidly. This reaction is fast and it occurs rapidly. Well, on the other hand, the fermentation process takes several weeks, which was a disadvantage of the fermentation process. But this reaction occurs rapidly. The ethene reaction with the steam occurs rapidly and the reaction is fast, and that is what it is the advantage for this process. Right? Now, the another advantage is that it gives pure alcohol. Now, on the other hand, if I talk about the fermentation process, so fermentation process, 15% alcohols on a pure form we can obtain. But on the other hand, the ethene reaction with the steam gives you the pure alcohol. So that is what it is an advantage for this process. If I talk about the disadvantages, so what is the disadvantage for this process? As because this process occurs at the higher temperature and like you can say lots of electricity is required, higher temperature. So that's why it is the like it is a disadvantage for this process. Lot of energy is utilized. So this is a disadvantage because it costs more money because this process only occurs at the higher temperature, so it costs more money. So lots of energy is utilized, and so that is a disadvantage for this process. And the another thing is that yes, so the ethene that is used here, it is like it is not a renewable source. Okay, so ethene it is made from the ethane, so it obtained from the petroleum. Actually, it is not a renewable sources. So when it is used, so it is gone. So means that the ethene is not a renewable source. Once it is used, it's gone. So that is the disadvantage of this whole process of the ethene reaction with the steam. So that is all about this lecture. Thank you so much, students.